My 1920s Lego city is a mess. Let's see if I can clean it up a bit. I didn't like how my sidewalks were all 2x2 tiles, so I ripped them all off and put them away. The roads looked too narrow for a 1920s city, so I expanded them from 8 studs to 16 studs with an 8-stud trolley track and a 7-stud sidewalk. If you look really closely, you can see yellow and white and all other different types of colored bricks underneath that little gap, which is why for the new roads, I used light bluish gray bricks instead. Instead of the 2x2 tiles, I used all different tiles, plates, and modified tiles and plates to make the sidewalk have more character and cracks, while at the same time making it much easier to position minifigures on it later. I positioned the much wider roads into my city, and now it looks much more like a 1920s city than the narrow roads I was using before. I built a few more roads and added them to my city. Now it's time to add the buildings, starting with the Coroner Hotel, then the fire station, the police station, the 3-story bank, the hospital, the Mafia Operation MOC, and Case's Diner. I finished off the sidewalk, which also helped connect the buildings to the road. A lot of you were telling me that I should build on both sides of the road, so I took a few buildings and put it on the opposite side of the street, along with the Model T factory. The Model Ts needed a way to get out of the Model T factory, so I had to build a road to put between the Model T factory and Case's Diner. I built a Lego trolley, which many people think is quite ugly, and added it onto the train lines that run through the middle of the road. The problem is that the poles I had built for the Lego trolley were being knocked down by the trolley, so I had to separate both road sections and add 2 more studs between them. This allowed me to add jumper plates in the middle 2 studs between the rails and attach trolley poles to them. I added 2 more poles farther down the street. A lot of people were saying that the trolley was running too low to the ground, so I took off the bottom layer of studs, and so now it sits 1 stud above the road. I added some light posts as well as 2 strings for the trolley lines. Now it's time to add some minifigures like a carrot farmer and a Model T. I added a milkman and another Model T. I added another Model T and my trolley. Across the street, there's a hay cart, a fancy man going for a ride in his carriage, a cart carrying some mafia contraband, another Model T, and a police Model T. I added some minifigure stories such as Chef Case buying his produce for the day. I also added the police raiding the Irish Mafia's penthouse, a shady character going upstairs to the Mafia's brewery, some other random pedestrians, and a bellhop who was looking concerned. I also added some poo behind the horse, because that was very common in the 1920s when horse-drawn carriages often didn't clean up their mess. Now I get to show you all the buildings. The first building, and my favorite, is the Mafia Operation MOC. It's 2 separate buildings, as you can see from the front. There's the pizzeria side, the distillery, and Mafia Mob Boss's house. And then there's the speakeasy, cigar lounge, and 2 apartments, and then the Mafia apartment up here. So let me just quickly show you the inside. There is the Mafia boss's girlfriend getting some dynamite to do some dastardly deed. There is a nice fireplace here with some smoke. I'm not sure how I like the smoke, but if you have any improvements, let me know. Obviously, there's this hole in the wall here, because that's the only way to get into the Mafia Mob Boss's area and the speakeasy, which is, not speakeasy, the brewery, which is right down there. But this is what the Mafia area looks like. You can see there's bunk beds, there is some weapons on the wall, some loot, some machine gun there, and then this little hole in the floor is so that a guy, right now there's a Mafia member there, can watch the stairs and guard it via that window right there. So if anybody walks up from the street down there, this guy will be guarding. This is the first apartment building. There's no affiliation to the Mafia. There's some dishes in the sink. He just made himself some tea. There's a nice bed, a fridge, stove, oven, and it's a really nice apartment overall. Underneath this apartment is another apartment. There is a lady eating an apple. This one has a bathroom with a shower there, a toilet, a green bed, nice yellow countertops, and there is a pot here. She's making some food. It's a little bit bigger because of the bathroom, but then it's also smaller because there's no stove. One funny thing about this apartment is because it's a Mafia Operation MOC, there is a few skeletons in the closet. Right underneath the Mafia Mob Boss area is the brewery. So right now I use that little ice cream piece to make it look like foamy beer is pouring out. Here's where they make the beer in all these barrels. And before I called it a distillery, but no, it's actually a brewery. Someone pointed out because they're just making beer. And there is the guy making some new brew underneath the brewery. And one more thing about the brewery is that it can only be accessed from the story above via a ladder. Other than that, there's no way to access it. And the Mafia hides the brewery by making a pizzeria underneath. So there's a lady baking in the oven, which is why there's a chimney running up the side. There's a guy ordering pizza. They do make the best pizza in town, so that's why the police haven't shut them down yet. But the police station, which is right across the road, and the only set in my entire city, is right across the road, as I just said, and they're keeping a watchful eye on this operation because they're always curious why so many people are entering this door right there, which goes up the stairs here, even though there's only 2 apartments. Another interesting thing about this Mafia MOC is right behind the cigar lounge, there is a sliding door, which is disguised as a bookshelf, and if you slide that to the left, you can get into the speakeasy. One funny story is that Loki is trying to buy the One Ring of Power, and Indiana Jones is also looking for the One Ring of Power as an artifact. So it's a little funny story. Indiana Jones will run into Loki. Anyway, there's whiskey, wine, beer on the wall there, and a really cool speakeasy overall. The building right next to the Mafia Operation MOC is the hospital. Now, the only story in the hospital is Doctor Strange, who is also looking for the One Ring, and then he just got a little bit distracted doing some medical stuff, so that's a little bit funny. But a lot of people are saying this hospital is out of place. It doesn't look very modern. The front looks weird. Everything just looks strange, which I agree. So I'm going to be redoing the hospital and using some dark red bricks to change the color, and also trying to fix the front. Right next to the hospital is the largest building, which is the Model T factory. There's a moving crane here. There's a whole bunch of employees. Now, this is going to be multiple stories high, so I left the back off so that I could look inside. So this is probably going to be about as tall as the clock over there on the fire station. That's going to be really cool. The front looks nice with all these curved windows, and I think that looks really cool. Across the road is the building that's being moved. I put all these timbers underneath, and then there's some red levers to jack up the building so they can move it, because the city wants to put in some bigger buildings, and they don't want to tear it down, so they're just moving it. And that was pretty common, actually, in the 1920s. Right next to it is the bank. Inside the bank, we have a security guard, and the executive's desk. And around the corner is a guy looking at and assessing some silver. And then there's some stacks of money there. Underneath, and then there's the roof access there. Underneath the top story is the second story, where there is a painter painting on a canvas. I just used 1x2x5 bricks and laid it on their side to make the canvas. And then there's a break room there and some more desks for working. The last floor is my favorite. I like the checkered floor. There's bank tellers with these bars, which looks really nice. Of course, here's the vault with gold, diamonds, bunch of silver, pirate chest. And then there's some money being counted over there and being given to this farmer. Also, another story here is Henry Ford and the secretary who are going to deposit money, because that's the whole reason why this bank was built in the first place in the city. Right next door to the bank is the only set in this entire city, which is the police station and donut shop. There's a few stories. There's the guy selling donuts outside of it. There's a newspaper stand, and actually the mafia boss is buying a newspaper. I just knocked over the telegraph, the trolley lines, because they're so hard to see because it's just this thin string. But anyway, the police station has everything from the set. There's like a conference room, a bathroom, an apartment next door, a map on the wall, some typewriters, which is cool, especially because that's very 1920s. And this Lego police station set actually fits perfectly in the 1920s city. I didn't have to modify anything, so that's cool. And then here is the donut shop with the front desk of the police station and the jail. So that concludes the set. And again, that's the only set in the city. Other than that, I try to do everything custom and successfully have done everything custom. Right next to the police station is the fire station. We have a clock tower here. And on the inside, there's the beds for the police. There's a place to lounge, some showers, some toilets, just so that the firemen and women, although it'd probably be just mostly firemen back in the 1920s, but that way they can relax here while they wait for the next call. The next level has a pool table, which is kind of cool, or a billiard table. I don't really know the difference. But there's also a kitchen there, and this is just where they eat and relax. And then there's the fire pole, which slides down to the basement or main floor. There's the captain's coat rack and his little desk there. Now, on the bottom floor of the fire station is the place where the wagon parks. Now, I still have to make a fire wagon, so leave some ideas down in the comments below. I want it to be a horse-drawn fire engine, because that was very common in the 1920s, and it'll fit really nicely in the 1920s themes with the other carts as well. Right next door to the fire station is the very last building, the hotel, which has a Mafia penthouse on the top. But first, here is a water canister to supply the penthouse with the direct access to water. And then there is also Bob's Burgers billboard. I'm also going to be adding another billboard over here, hanging off of the Mafia Pizzeria MOC. Now, back to the hotel. This is where the Irish Mafia are. If I open up the top, there's the roof access there. But anyway, if you open up the top, there is the Mafia, not the Italian Mafia, which resides across the street, but the Irish mob, which they have a bunch of money. There's a guy sitting here drinking some beer. There is a pizza delivery, which is kind of funny because technically even the Irish like pizza, I guess. But then there's some Tommy guns, some dynamite, a chest full of diamonds, and a bunch of loot in their loot room. Underneath the top story, it goes back to a normal hotel. There's 2 rooms. What's not normal is because the police are raiding the the Irish mob, one of the mob members is sitting here with a Tommy gun watching the stairs. But anyway, there's some there's little bookshelves there, coat rack, and underneath is a pool. They did have indoor pools in the 1920s. We checked, and there is the front counter. There's not much going on here. Maybe I can add some chairs, but what is going on is, of course, the police raid on the Irish mob. So that's the city as it is right now. I am enjoying building this 1920s city. I like adding all the life. I need to buy more minifigures, though, to make the streets even more full and try to make some more Model Ts and or other car brands that were back in the 1920s. My next steps for the city is adding a barber shop. Now, I don't know if I should do a street barber where he's just cutting hair on the street or add this into one of the existing buildings, because very likely I won't be adding too much more to this city. I'm almost out of bricks, and the only thing I might do is make all the buildings taller, like adding a single floor more onto all the buildings over there just to make them a little bit bigger. If you have any other suggestions for the 1920 city, please let me know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.